Hey guys, doTERRIAN here. Now I'm here to talk about the very bare basics of crafting. Now the reason why I'm making this video is because I remember when I was first starting out and I had absolutely no idea what was going on. And I was looking at like the crafting menu and I was overcomplicating it in my brain, but I realized that crafting in Last Epoch is actually much easier than I thought it would be. So to understand how crafting works in Last Epoch, first you need to understand forging potential and item rarities. So first, with forging potential, you can see here on my scythe item here, the Soul Harvester. It's a one-handed axe in the description. It has a bunch of stats on it, and then it also has listed forging potential. So forging potential is basically how many times you can craft on a piece of gear. Every item that you'll find has a base amount of forging potential. Now this item says it has 15 forging potential, but this doesn't actually mean that you can craft on it 15 times. So the catch is that when I craft on a piece of gear, so let's say, and I brought up my forge, which is the crafting area, by pressing F on the keyboard. Okay, so I can move the item into the forge, and here it allows me to craft the item. So essentially I'll be able to do stuff to it. So here I can choose an affix to add. Once I add an affix, I'll be able to upgrade that affix as well to roll higher stats. But in essence, when I add, for example, now let's say we want to add melee fire damage, or for example, health on melee hit as an affix. When I add an affix, it says here costs 1 to 10 forging potential, 15 forging potential remaining. So when I add this affix, it has a random chance to add between 1 to 10 forging potential on this item. So in essence, this item won't be crafted on like 15 times. You could, but it may only be crafted on like 2 to 3 times, because let's say randomly it adds 2 forging potential, and then the next time it adds 10. So then you'll have like 3 forging potential left, and essentially you'll only be able to craft on it 3 times. With these item rarities, this is a common item, a white common item. You can see that white common item has no affixes underneath the forging potential. As I increase the rarity, these blue ones, the magic items, has 2 affixes on it. So these are ones that I just naturally find out in the world. And you can see here, these have 2. These yellow ones have 3 to 4. And then these exalted ones have also 3 to 4 as well. You'll notice on these exalted ones, there's a unique purple affix as well. These are much stronger versions of affixes that you can find. But essentially, the higher the rarity of the item, the more likely the forging potential will be higher. So in this case here, I got these common items. These common items, this one has 16 forging potential. This one has 15 forging potential. This blue one has 13. So again, I said likely. So this one in this case is less. This one has 11. Rare Axe has 16. This one has 17. Okay, so more likely to be higher. In this case, these purple ones actually have like 43 and 44. And it's because these are exalted, that's why they have much higher forging potentials. And so every time you craft, any type of crafting that you'll do, it will eat up some of the forging potential. So as I mentioned, you have the white common item rarities, the blue magic item rarities, yellow rares, purple exalted, and then you have 3 others. So you've got green set items, and you have the orange looking unique items, and then finally the one I haven't mentioned here is a legendary, because on this particular account I actually don't have any legendaries. But with the green sets, the uniques and the legendary items, these actually have no forging potential on it. Okay, so these ones, when you find them out in the world, they'll have the exact same stats. That's why you can't craft on these items, because these items will have the exact same stats. With the legendary I won't mention, because the legendary is actually crafted on based on the uniques, and it's a completely different type of crafting, which I won't go through in this particular video. Okay, but essentially the sets and the uniques don't have crafting involved because they have no forging potential on those pieces of gear. Now, these item rarities can actually change based on how you've crafted on it. So for example, this common item, which has no affix on it, I have the opportunity to craft something onto this piece of gear. So let's say I want to add fire damage to it. Okay, so here I've got 27 shards of fire damage. It will consume 1 shard, it will cost between 1 to 10 fortune potential and add the affix on it. Now, one thing to notice is that it doesn't use up any gold, which means the only thing that you're spending to craft on this item will be the affix shard. Once I add an affix onto it, you can see here this item has now changed from a common into a magic item. This is the item rarity changing, as you can see, as I've added items onto it. As I've added an affix onto it, you can see I have unlocked more slots for the affixes that I want to be added on it. You can also see that it only consumed 1 fortune potential, meaning that I've got 14 left as well. So from here, I can either add a new affix or I can upgrading my existing tier 1 affix. So when I forge on it for the first time, it will be the most basic tier of that particular affix, which is tier 1. This can increase up to a max of tier 5. So I can upgrade this even further. As I look at the item, I can see, if I press control, I can see the item range here. So in this case, it says tier 1, 12% increased fire damage. It ranges from 10 to 21%. So I actually got a low roll on this particular item's tier. But I can increase it. When I increase it, it will randomly roll within that range as well. So just to show you an example, we're going to upgrade this particular affix. And so now you can see I've rolled to a tier 2 and it's increased the range slightly. I've got 9%. It's rolled from 23 to 37%. So I did increase the range in which it rolled as well, based on luck. Now, these affixes that roll onto the gear, they will usually come in the form of 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes here. So for example, if I add another suffix, let's say I add a resistance. And by the way, with these prefixes will usually tend towards the side of being more stat and offensive based, while the suffixes will be based on more defensive and utility based, but they can kind of cross over at certain points. So in this case, if I'm going to roll a resistance, for example, oh, actually this is a weapon, so they can't roll resistance, but these utility based, for example, if I want to increase the chance of igniting because I have a fire item, I can add the affix on. So let's say, for example, I add this particular affix. Okay, and you can see once I've crafted on there, it actually ate up all of the fortune potential. So this now has 0 fortune potential, meaning that I can't craft on this item anymore. Okay, so you can see here I've crafted on what was initially a white item. I've put an affix of my choosing onto it, 2 affixes of my choosing, and then I upgraded one of the tiers for this particular item. And I did that by using these Affix Shards. So Affix Shards are the materials that you'll be using to craft items in the game, and the game literally throws Affix Shards at you like gold. Now, there are different types of Affix Shards. You can see here in my inventory, I've got a view materials section. These are all the Affix Shards that I've collected on this particular account. I've been playing for around 60 hours, and I've got like 3,000 different shards, runes, and glyphs. But the other thing to note is that some of these affixes are very rare. So for instance, if it's like more class-focused affixes or hybrid-held affix, for example, they tend to be much harder to find. But otherwise, some of these stats, like armor, for example, the game literally just dumps at you. So if I look up armor, so physical damage is one, I've got like 42 of these. Yeah, so for example, armor here, I've got like 114 of those. So hybrid health here, I've got only 4 of them compared to armor. So one of the things that makes this crafting system so good is that you have the option to choose what you want on the piece of gear. And there is a slight randomness to it in terms of the forging potential. There's also the forging potential. There's also things in place to help you not lose any forging potential. So you have the opportunity to try and craft more on that piece of gear. That is this Glyph of Hope. So this is a glyph that you can add to modify the outcome of a craft, granting it a 25% chance to consume no forging potential. So that's one way you can kind of try and mitigate not losing any forging potential. The other is when you're upgrading your gear, there's a chance that there'll be a critical success. And so critical success is when you're upgrading an affix there's a chance that it won't consume any forging potential, and instead it will also randomly increase the tier of one of your affixes as well. So if you've got 4 affixes on this piece of gear, and they're all say tier 3, for example, upgrading that and getting a critical success will increase one of them to tier 4. So essentially, those two things are like a little good luck bonus to aid you in terms of the crafting. Now, I'll be going through glyphs and runes in terms of crafting in my next video, which will be part 2. If you've enjoyed this video, drop me a like down below, subscribe to the channel, and as always, have an awesome day. Bye for now.